Request Chief to come and take the stage and interact further. There are two key things, Chief, that the community wants to hear from you. One is the recent incident of Mr. Devinder Bedipal, which is in your jurisdiction. And then what guidance would you like to give to the community on mental health challenges?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you for having me. I want to be real informal, so please feel free to stop me at any point you have questions. Anything I say raises alarms or causes you to want to discuss with me. First and foremost, as Baljeet said, I obviously can't get into an investigation into an incident that has happened. I will tell you that there were no indications that the incident you were referring to, and I'm sorry, the family's name,
Devinder Bedipal?
was anything other than what it appeared to be as a murder-suicide. There was nothing to indicate any other foul play. It was a horrible, horrible tragedy that occurs, unfortunately, way too frequently across our country. And I think it's just a prime example of what we're trying to do as a police department to address in our community the mental health crisis that we find ourselves facing each and every day. So much so that earlier this year in January, we launched our mental health response team. The mental health response team is made up of 3 police officers and a clinician, a psychologist who works very closely with those 3 police officers. They have a sergeant that supervises them. They work out of our family advocacy center, so they're there surrounded by all of the counselors that we have on staff. But their mission is, when they're at work, to respond to calls for service that are involving mental health consumers. They're specially trained in dealing with people facing a mental health crisis. So they're better able to communicate with those persons without having to resort to uses of force. They are more familiar with the resources across North Texas that we can refer those people in crisis to, that we can reach out and get help with. So having them available has been truly game-changing for us. Now, as you can imagine, they don't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a very small team. They're only deployed 4 days a week for 10 hours a day. But we did do a study of our calls for service, and they are deployed across the time frame in which we experience our most heaviest volume of calls for those types of service. When they're not on a call, when they're not responding to one of those types of calls for service, we've identified a list of high-frequency users of those services. And so they actually go out and make house calls. They will go talk to a family, they'll go talk to a mental health consumer, just to make sure, are you taking your medication? Are you going to see the doctor like you're supposed to? Are you eating correctly? Are you healthy? And so they're doing this preemptive work on the front end, hopefully preventing this person from getting into a crisis on the back end that we have to then deal with. It's been highly successful. We're beginning to almost get to the point where we have a full year's worth of data. So I think what we'll see is a true change in our community and how the police department addresses mental health. Now, on the other side of this, supporting this group or this team is our behavioral health leadership team. And this is made up of professionals from all walks of life here in North Texas, medical professionals, mental health professionals, people who work for the government and different resources. This team comes together and they provide the oversight of our mental health response team. So they're constantly evaluating our program measures. They're looking at how we're responding to these calls for service. They're providing guidance or searching out other resources that we can use. it's truly one of a kind behavioral health team, actually led by a police department. What you see normally is these behavioral health teams are led by a mental health facility, but to really be led by a police department and work hand in hand with the men and women of law enforcement has been game changing for us as well. So that's been a great benefit. So I'm always looking for what's next. What can we do to provide better service? I met Baljeet. We talked about mental health. We talked about what we can do. I think one of the gaps that we have is with our South Asian community. It might not be as evident to y'all as it is to me, but there's a little bit of cultural difference between us and y'all. And so it's great to be here tonight because I have so many friends here in the audience that I have relationships with, and that's always positive because that tells me we're doing the right things. But I still think I don't want to call it mistrust. I just think there's a lack of knowledge in what services we can provide as a police department or as a city, and what services you need in your community as a South Asian community. And bridging those gaps is one of the most important parts of my job. It's why I go out and I make the relationships that I make and do all the visits I do, because getting to know those folks, getting to know you, where you work, where you live, where you worship is very important, because if I can develop your trust, then I know that you won't hesitate to pick up the phone and call either me directly, because many of you have my phone number, or you'll at least pick up the phone and call 911 and ask for someone to come help. And that's the hope that I have in working with Roar for happiness and laughing at life, is that we continue to develop that relationship, that trust relationship. In January, I believe it is, or February, we're starting 8 weeks of a program on the radio, and I'm sorry, but I don't know if it's your radio station or not. It is awesome. Yeah. We're gonna participate on Sunday afternoons to do a call in and talk about mental health and really have our behavioral health team there giving some guidance, talking about what symptoms to look for, what to expect when we show up, just trying to tamper down that fear or that uncertainty that happens anytime you think you need to call the police. There's always, but what are they going to do? There's always that thought in the back of your mind, what are they going to do? Because you see so many times on TV, on the news, on social media, on YouTube, where the police are called, and that interaction doesn't end well at all. And it's certainly possible that happens, but it's so less likely than social media or mass media would have you believe. We have thousands upon thousands of interactions with community members every day that end just like this one's going to end. We're all going to shake hands and we're going to leave out the door, and we're going to go back home to our friends and families, or we're going to go back to work, and we're going to have a chance to get a good night's rest, and we're going to do it all again tomorrow. That's the vast majority overwhelming majority of all of our interactions. And we want to continue to build upon that. That happens because we're able to build trust. We're able to build familiarity with each other in interactions like this. So look for that to be coming up starting in January. I think we're on the right track at developing those programs that we can roll out to our community as a whole, not just the South Asian community, but the Hispanic community, the African American community, the elderly community. We all experience mental health issues. It doesn't just focus in one area. It doesn't focus on one population. It's not confined to people who do drugs. It's not confined to people who become depressed. There are mental health issues that span the whole spectrum of behavior. And so we need to be cognizant of that. We need to look for ways to partner together so that we can address those issues before they do end in violence in some manner or the other. This is also important to me from a professional standpoint. I share this with any group that I talk to about mental health. More police officers kill themselves every year than are killed in the line of duty. Suicide is something that our profession has ignored for many, many years. Fortunately, we've had our eyes open to what's going on, and we, as administrators, began to address it, providing mental health services for our own employees, recognizing the trauma that our employees face day in and day out, recognizing the symptoms and signs of PTSD, ensuring that those employees who are suffering from mental health issues get the help they need, as opposed to shunning them or pushing them out of the organization, which only compounds the problem. Finding them the right treatment plan, getting them healthy and getting them back to work is the #1 goal, and you're seeing this across the policing profession. I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago at the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. 20,000 police professionals from all over the world come to this conference. That was the #1 topic across all of the educational breakout sessions, was how we stem this suicide epidemic that's occurring in our profession. So it's something very near and dear to my heart, not only from a community standpoint, but from a professional standpoint as well.